Thank you. Next slide. Oh, this is a fun one. Ladies and gentlemen, this one is from 2018. This is about 4 months before Joe Biden launched his campaign for president of the United States, December 2018. The highlight is, this is a text message between Jim Biden and Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden was in a bad way, by the way. He was really strung out. He lost a bunch of money. He needed help. Jim Biden says, "This can work. You need a safe harbor. I can work with your father alone." It'll probably take several months and everybody can read the text. Ms. O'Connor, Mr. Dubinsky, if you saw a text message like this between the president's brother and the president's son, wouldn't you be concerned about them trying to give plausible deniability for the president of the United States to not have any knowledge of said business dealings?
It's worth.
Gentleman's time's expired, but please answer the question.
It's worth investigating.
Mr. Dubinsky?
I would agree. I would investigate this.
I want to emphasize why that's important. Earlier today, one of our colleagues, a gentleman from Florida, presented up on this screen something that appeared to be a screenshot of a text message containing or insinuating an explosive allegation. That screenshot of what appeared to be a text message was a fabricated image. It was a fabricated image. I don't know where it came from. I don't know if it was the staff of the committee, but it was not the actual direct screenshot from that phone. And in fact, I would like to submit to the committee the actual full context from the Ziegler Affidavit number 1, Exhibit 402, of the full text of that exchange. Do I have permission from the chair? Importantly, what was brought out from that fabricated image excluded critical context that changed the underlying meaning and allegation that was presented up on that screen by this committee and by members of this committee. Now, they are well within their right to do that because they are covered by the speech and debate clause. This was not submitted by a material or fact witness under oath. That was not submitted by a material or fact witness under oath.
Good evening, Milwaukee. You know, Milwaukee, we're on live television. You gotta let me get to the speech now. Thank you. I'm Byron Donalds, and I come from the great state of Florida. And I proudly represent the people of Southwest Florida. But I was raised by a single mother in Brooklyn, New York. Life was hard and we struggled. When I was in the first grade, my mother took me out of public school because she could see that public education was failing me. I needed to be challenged and I needed the opportunity that only a private school could provide. My mother is an educator and she truly believed in my potential. But Democrat politicians wanted to trap me in a failing school, but my mom fought for me. Mom, I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you. Thank you, Mom. Words cannot describe how deeply grateful I am to be your son. When I was in the 7th grade, my mom lost her job. We went on government assistance and my grandma helped us pay for private school. My mom and my grandma sacrificed to ensure that I could build a successful future through a commitment to academic achievement and hard work. I'm standing here today as a result of their love, good and safe schools, and great teachers. And to the teachers of America who pour your heart and your soul into your students and teach the next generation to love, honor, and serve our great country, we all say thank you. But what about those kids whose parents can't scrape money together for private school? Don't those kids who grew up like I grew up deserve the same chance that I had? Joe Biden and Kamala Harris sent their kids to high-priced private schools. But since they are in the pocket of the far-left teachers' unions, they trap poor kids like me in failing schools with no way out. They say they're pro-choice, but not if you want a choice over what your kids are taught. Donald Trump believes every parent deserves a choice, and every child deserves a chance. And in November, when Donald Trump is elected, our nation's 47th president, we will make sure all America's children get that chance. Growing up poor, I know the pain of high food prices, high energy prices, and housing costs. I remember as a kid, my mom yelling at me, "Turn off that light, you don't pay the bill." We know there's a bunch of kids in America today who are hearing that from their parents. The massive inflation created by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris has only made it worse. During my first term in Congress, I served on the Budget Committee and the Small Business Committee. We told Joe Biden that his so-called American Rescue Plan was going to cause inflation. The Biden-Harris administration told us not to worry, but I knew better. I have nearly 2 decades of experience as a financial professional, and the evidence is in. Go to any grocery store, buy eggs, buy beef, buy milk. Even housing prices have skyrocketed. All Americans deserve a shot at the American dream. But under Joe Biden's debilitating economic policies, far many Americans, far too many of them, that dream has slipped away. This shows that we were right, that Joe Biden was wrong, and that you, the American people, are paying the price. As Americans, we've all been struggling. The disastrous results of the Biden-Harris agenda transcend race, religion, or income. But under President Trump, all of this will change. And if there was ever a time, God bless you, Milwaukee. God bless the United States of America.
Cortez is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, for convening this hearing, and thank you to our witness panel for being with us today. I want to take the time today to explore some of the implications of central bank digital currencies for folks kind of following at home. A digital dollar would resemble in certain ways cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin or Ethereum in certain limited respects. But differ in very important ways as well. Now, Dr. Levin, rather than a tradable asset with wildly fluctuating prices that we see in certain crypto markets and limited real life use as a currency, a central bank digital currency would function more like dollars and have more widespread acceptance, presumably, correct?
Right. The point is that with a central ledger in an electronic world, you can have instant, free, secure transactions.
Great.
That's why, coming back to this other thing, when I think about digital world like cell phone, we don't say, well, is this for work or is it for home? Mm-hmm. It's for everything. And so it's all the above. And so absolutely having a free safe, secure, instant transaction platform that every American can use is what we should have had already, and we need it now.
Thank you. And just to clarify, it would also be fully regulated under a central authority, right? Yeah.
So I think there's been some agreement among a number of us at this table that these should be 100% backed by reserves held at the Fed. So there's no concern that the stablecoin provider might go bankrupt. Okay, and then there's a panic. And
thank you. I'm sorry, I just have limited time. Now, economists like Claudia Sahm have, and as we've heard throughout the hearing, agree that direct stimulus payments, like the checks that Americans received during the pandemic, can shorten recessions. And although stimulus payments helped stabilize the economy during the pandemic, delivery was sometimes slow. And even the IRS and the Treasury just announced last week that 2.2 million stimulus payments were made in late July. These were the stimulus payments that people got months ago after the original passing of the American Rescue Plan. Now, this is not because of some technical, payments getting lost in technology or bureaucracy. It's because the most vulnerable people in our society are hardest to reach. People who don't have consistent mailing addresses, people who are unbanked, a lot of times because it's too expensive to be banked, people who don't file taxes because they make too little money. And these are real issues. And so my question is, with the CBDC, it's all about the design. It's not just the idea, it's the execution, design, and implementation. And my question is, in that similar vein, what would make a well-designed CBDC system that helps overcome some of these existing issues that we have seen with banks and with just the delivery of stimulus checks? Ms. Coronado?
So one of the key pieces of the design is that the lower income households should have no fees whatsoever to engage, and that some of the technology access questions would be part of the infrastructure that's built. Whether that's a digital card that they're provided or kiosks, some sort of access to their accounts that is free and built and available to them to engage in the transactions.
Got it. And there has been some discussion even most recently, and we heard in the last few minutes, about two-tier systems. And Dr. Coronado, in your testimony, you say, quote, preserving a two-tier system of private providers would promote competition and continued innovation, while Fed oversight would promote that safety and soundness. Now, by two-tier systems, you're referring to how certain banks like Wells Fargo, Bank of America, JP Morgan can bank with the Federal Reserve, but regular Americans cannot, right? That's what you're alluding to? Okay. Now, I just want to be clear here, just for clarification. There is no legal, technical, or operational requirement as to why banks or private payment companies need to be involved, correct? In other words, the federal government could provide public digital currency services directly to the public if it wanted to, like the Postal Service provides
bank. Sure, yes.
Money to, okay, thank you. Now, I think one of the things that we're seeing here is that we're facing a choice. Congress is facing a choice, whether we want to give Wall Street another tool of being in charge of the public's money and payments, or whether we can potentially establish a public option here as well. Now, one concern that we hear in CBDC conversations, my time is up. I'm sorry, so I can't get to the last question. I'll file it for the record. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Here's everybody right here for me. Can I get you to look right here? Madam Speaker?
remarks. I'd like to just add a couple of points to what you've said. On January 6th, Senator Ted Cruz described it as terrorism. They later came to attack him during their revisionist, Orwellian, Stalinist attempt to rewrite history. Unfortunately for them, we know that there were 147 or 48 of our officers who were wounded, bloodied, and hospitalized by the rabid mob that beset the Capitol that day. We know that Kevin McCarthy, one of their deposed leaders over on their side, called Donald Trump from his office to complain about how his people were storming the Capitol and putting people's lives in danger. And Donald Trump said, no, those aren't my people, those are Antifa. And McCarthy corrected him and said, no, those are your people, Mr. President. To which Donald Trump said, well, maybe they just care a little bit more about who won the election than you did, Kevin McCarthy. You guys have got to deal with reality here. By the way, the speech and debate clause stands for the exact opposite principle who our distinguished new member just spoke about a moment ago. It says that members of Congress cannot be questioned anywhere else other than Congress. So he should read the speech or debate clause aloud.
Let him finish his sentence there. Now, Chair recognizes Mr. Burchett from Tennessee for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My colleagues seem to want to talk about the justice system, so let's talk about it. November of last year, the chairman issued a subpoena to Hunter Biden to appear on December 13th, for a closed-door deposition. Instead of respecting the rule of law, Hunter Biden chose to give a press conference on the front steps of the Senate. To show such contempt for Congress without fear of repercussions highlights a theme throughout this administration and Democrat administrations before it. If you're a big-name Democrat, then you are immune to prosecution. Former Attorney General Eric Holder said as much in a memo he wrote regarding collateral consequences. For those that don't know, the collateral consequence policy allowed prosecutors to consider whether charging a company or individual will result in greater societal harm than not charging them. It's why the banks weren't held criminally accountable to the fallout of the 2008 financial crisis. It is why Jeffrey Epstein's clients aren't behind bars. It's also the mindset of President Biden and his family. Too big to jail. Not too big to fail, too big to jail. The two-tier justice system is a disgrace to our country and the principles it was founded on. I thank the chairman and the committee for the hard work they put in to hold the Biden administration accountable, but I doubt our Justice Department has the guts or the wherewithal to do anything about it. And I would like to yield my time to my friend from Florida, Byron Donalds.
Actually,
I'll yield. Let me yield to Miss May. She hasn't gotten enough quality TV time today, so I'll give her a little more time.
Thank you, and then I'll yield to my colleague from Florida as well. I'm going to try to be quick here because I was accused by my colleague on the other side of the aisle about my white privilege. I want to say, number one, as the former ranking member of the Civil Rights Subcommittee under Chairman Raskin last session, I take great pride as a white female Republican to address the inadequacies in our country. I come from a district where rich and poor is literally black and white, black versus white on most days. My largest jail in my district, which is the largest jail in the state of South Carolina, has had 7 or 8 deaths in the last 2 years. And I was there with our black and African American council members trying to get the right thing done. And I come from a district where black men have been killed by law enforcement, tased to death in our jails, and I've stood with those black families because I know the differences that they see day to day in their life, and I try to do the best that I can. I come from a district where the first African-American, first black man in the U.S. House of Representatives was Joseph P. Rainey, represented my district back in the 1800s with that. The last black member of the U.S. House of Representatives before Reconstruction came from South Carolina, George P. Murray, the black man, former slave, and entrepreneur who founded the Republican Party in South Carolina. One of the founding members was named Robert Smalls, who commandeered a Confederate ship and gave it to Union soldiers and served his country admirably in the process. In my district, it was Harriet Tubman, and you can see it in the movie Harriet, who rescued more than 700 slaves in one night in Beaufort County, South Carolina. So I am very well aware of our rich history and try to recognize it as best as I can in the position that I have, and I resent the fact that you're going to throw that in my face up here. I'm one of the few people that you'll see on my side of the aisle trying to do the right thing for the right people every single day, and I would like to yield the remaining balance of time to my colleague from Florida.
This has been a very interesting hearing. Mr. Waltz, welcome to Oversight. Yes, it usually gets like this. Look, let's be very clear. This isn't about Hunter Biden's white privilege. It's about Hunter Biden's Democrat privilege. Because Donald Trump Jr. showed up for 5 congressional subpoenas. There was never this circus where he was subpoenaed by House Democrats and he showed up on the Senate side or showed up at the White House to answer in some fake, phony, lame press conference, not actually going to the House and doing what he was compelled by a subpoena to do. Hunter Biden did that. And then he has the unmitigated gall to show up here when we know that we're going through actually the legislation for contempt, with, by the way, Mr. Chairman, we should actually get to the legislation of contempt. The speechifying is great, but let's do our business, members. He has the gall to come here, show up, and then when the Democrats are saying, hey, he wants to speak, he leaves. This is a joke. This is a farce. The man has been subpoenaed by Congress. Oh, and by the way, the January 6th committee, Mr. Raskin, which you did sit on, by the way, that was not a normally ordered committee of Congress because Nancy Pelosi did not want the Republican members that then Leader McCarthy put up.
According to the courts, it was.
My time, sir.
Will you yield for a correction?
I was respectful of your time. I didn't say anything. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's move forward with our business. He should be held in contempt. There was a subpoena. He did not answer it. Any other American will be held in contempt by Congress. Any other. This is Democrat privilege of the highest order. Let's do our jobs. I yield.
Gentleman yields. Chair now recognizes Ms. Ocasio-Cortez from New York.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to address briefly, quickly, that moment about privilege and all of this that we're seeing here. It was a very beautiful speech by the gentlelady who, as she mentioned, was helped lead on the now majority side, the Civil Rights and Civil Liberties Subcommittee. But I think it's so exemplary of the point that she also oversaw the elimination of the Civil Rights Subcommittee on this committee, which really kind of gives the whole game away. We show up, we give speeches, we give flowery words, but at the end of the day, participate in the structural erosion of the rights and representation of people that are marginalized, women, people of color, people that just need to see their due process and civil liberties protected in this country. But I will move on. As also the Republican side had mentioned in their many raisings of the January 6th committee, that it's not just Hunter Biden, you, me, any individual subject to equal treatment under the law, to be held up to accountability under the law, but it is also these committees and this committee that is subject to oversight and law. We must comply with the law here as well. Now, I may be one of the very few people that actually believes in Congress, in this country. But I do, and many of us do here. And we have an obligation to engage in good faith participation to execute and comply with the subpoena. The chairman said in front of the country several times to Hunter Biden, you can show up here in front of the world, in front of the public. Hunter Biden took him up on that offer. He said, I will show up in public. I will show up in public. He showed up here today. He showed up here in the past. And Mr. Chairman, I know you do your best with what you've got, but you've got members here that have submitted falsified evidence to the record. You have members here that have submitted and mischaracterized closed-door hearings, and people want to say back and forth at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what party it's happened from. You've got members who've engaged in revenge porn in this committee. So it is understandable why Hunter Biden would want to testify in front of the public for the American people to be able to witness that testimony for themselves. You've got members who've defied subpoenas. You've got members who we are 1 year into the term asking what the rules are at the beginning of the committee. The book was given to us on day one. And so what we should do is allow the man to testify. I believe in the power of the Oversight Committee. Frankly, I believe in it regardless of whether Republicans or Democrats have the chair, because I believe that this committee should have the power of oversight. And we cannot do that on a partisan basis. And so for that, I implore this committee to allow Hunter Biden to testify publicly. I implore and I ask for that to happen. And we cannot do that by getting engaged in this back and forth on a defiance of the subpoena. Let him comply. Let him do it today. Let him do it tomorrow. But let the man do it. And with that, I yield back to the ranking member.
Thank you, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez. I think you went right to the heart of the issue here. If this ended up going to court, Mr. Chairman, and I hope it doesn't, I really hope that this committee will act in a way to negotiate and achieve a compromise with the witness. But if it goes to the court, it's going to present a novel question. What happens when a committee represented by its distinguished chairman goes out in public and repeatedly invites and challenges a witness to come before the committee, and then that witness gives the answer, yes, I will come in? At that point, the committee pulls a bait and switch and says, well, we actually don't want you to come before the full committee as was offered repeatedly in public by the chairman, but instead, we'd like you to come to a back room and do it there in a closed deposition. Now, undoubtedly, if that had been the original offer, the committee would stand in a very good place, the way we did with Mr. Biggs and Mr. Perry and Mr. Jordan, because they were told to come in, they were subpoenaed, and they blew off the subpoenas of the committee, which is why I don't think anybody should be voting on that side other than Ms. Mace, because Ms. Mace is the one who took the position that the rule of law means something. And I take the position, if we give somebody a subpoena, they should come in. But there's a very sticky problem now. What happens when we give them one offer A and then switch it over to offer B? That's why I hope you will work it out, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for yielding.
Gentlelady's time's expired. To respond to the gentlelady, he can come in for a hearing after the deposition.